everyone, it is Toby here, back for another video here in the garage gym. So what are we going to be doing today? Well, today, as you have seen in the title, we are going to be going for a pretty monstrous leg day. It is one of the few leg days that I ever do in the home gym, so I'm going to film it all for you guys and show you a proper big meaty leg session. We have just started a brand new block, so we are going to be building some pretty strong legs in this one. I can feel it. But we are also going to be giving my thoughts on the strongest man on earth competition in between my sets today. There's been some controversy. There's been all sorts said on the Reddit. So I'm going to dive into it and give my thoughts on all of the talking points that at least I can remember. But it is the Monday straight after that competition. So I have had two very late nights watching that, because here in the UK it finished up at about 2 a.m. So that 2 nights on the trot for me is not brilliant, but we are going to put it aside. We've got some pre-workout. We're just going to smash today's session and hopefully it'll be feeling good. But I am going to dive into a bit of a session plan and then we will start with our warm-ups. So today we're going to be working up to a heavy set of 5 to 8 reps on squats. So we're going to be doing 195 kilo and the program says 5 plus. So a minimum of 5, but if I'm feeling good, I can go for 1 to 3 extra reps, which is why I sort of call it 5 to 8 because usually I feel good and I go for a couple extra, but obviously after the late nights, the last couple nights watching the strongest man on earth, we might not do that. But either way, it's going to be a pretty heavy set of squats that we're going to work up to. And then we will be doing some box squat back off sets. So going down to a bench, slight pause on the bench, and then driving back up. That is going to start this week quite light with the aim to increase those by 10 kilo every single week. And again, those are sets of 5 to 8. And then we are supposed to move in to the leg press. So in the public gym, obviously we can use the plate loadable leg press machine, but in this garage, we do not have a leg press. So I am going to be substituting that for a different exercise, which would usually be something like a trap bar deadlift or something like that. Something where it is pure leg drive power. And because recently I've been focusing on my knees and my knee rehab, being able to go nice and deep with bare knees on different exercises. I think I'm going to be doing some Ukrainian deadlifts because they are a really nice deep deficit sort of deadlift squat hybrid that we can get done. So Ukrainian deadlifts are going to be on the menu. They feel great on my knees and are really good for driving through the legs. So that'll be a good accessory to switch in instead of leg press. And then finish off with just some hamstring destruction. So some lying leg curls and some Nordic drops. So it's a pretty full-on leg session today. I'm definitely going to be wobbly after it, but we're going to put in the work, get these legs nice and strong, and that is what today's session is going to be. So I'm going to be getting warmed up for squats, show you my warm-up sets, and then in between those warm-up sets, I'm going to give you my event-by-event thoughts on the strongest man on earth, what can be improved, what can be, not improved because it was already pretty good. And yeah, just give my thoughts on some of the controversy that I've seen on the Reddit, see what I think about it, in case any of you care. So just going to be talking it through because it was a pretty nutty competition. I really enjoyed it for the most part. So let's load the bar up, let's get some weight on our backs, and let's get warming up for squats. Alright, squat's feeling good so far. I'm feeling a little bit tight, but that's to be expected when I am pretty tired. But yeah, feeling good. So the first event of the strongest man on earth was the max raw deadlift. So strongman raw, so belt and straps, no figure of 8 straps, which is there to sort of eliminate hanging it in the fingertips and athlete safety. But yeah, a few strict calls on this one. So first off, I will say my major criticism with the whole show in general is the lack of kilos anywhere. So everything was in pounds. And I know, I get it, it's an American show. But the majority, I want to say the majority of Strongman fans are like worldwide European and use kilos. It'd be nice. I'm not saying switch from pounds to kilos, but it would be nice to have both, because I spent the entire deadlift event with a calculator up, making sure I get the kilo numbers. It'd just be nice to have both. I'm not asking to get rid of pounds, just have both so then everyone's happy. But yeah, as I said, that's not a deadlift specific criticism. It was probably just most apparent in the deadlift because it is a max event, and it's obviously important to sort of know what the guys are doing. But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed this event. I love the lack of suits in Strongman. I think we should do away with them completely and just do max raw deadlift or raw deadlift for reps in every competition, apart from maybe the World Deadlift Championships, just because that record is done in a suit now, and dropping it to raw would lose that 505 hype, which I know they need. So if that's the one that's in a suit, I don't mind, but the rest of Strongman I think should be raw, like this was. But yeah, the judging controversy with Lucas Hatton and Evan Singleton is the main talking point here. So yeah, it's a difficult one, because I think in my mind the way they should do it is, if you're getting rid of figure eight straps in order to try and keep that finger closed and thumb locked, I think it's a difficult rule, because there's not a lot you could do about it once it's happened. Like we saw that with Evan Singleton, in that he was locked out, but you can't finger curl the bar back once you've already lost it. And it's just a gutting thing to lose, and it's such a minor thing that no one's really gonna notice from a spectator point of view, that it just causes confusion with whether he got it or not. And I think personally, if you want strict grip on the bar because of the straps, then get rid of straps. Like either you have straps and allow everything you could do with straps, or you don't have straps at all. That's the two things. So I think because Strongman allows straps, 1 or 2 inches of finger length isn't gonna, it's not the end of the world. I know some people really hate it, some people don't care. I'm one of the people who don't care. Like, at the end of the day, if you've got the strongest back and legs, you're going to be the strongest deadlifter. Like, if you're the strongest deadlifter, you're going to be the strongest deadlifter, regardless of if you get an extra kilo or 2 from hanging it. Like, it's not that big of a deal in my opinion. So I think for that, the judging was just a bit too strict. I think the judging was correct in that the refs gave the correct calls based on the rules they were given. I just think the rules with that fingertip rule is just a bit naff, to be honest, because it ruins the viewing experience. It leaves confusion as to why someone didn't get something. So I think, yeah, that's the only thing I want to say on the deadlift. Obviously, Thor won it comfortably on his second attempt. I don't think that was ever going to be in question. So yeah, pretty good event overall. But yeah, I think for me, just if you're allowing straps, you've got to allow the fingertip, because genetically as well, like someone could have a really short thumb and like really short thumb and fingers. They have to keep it a lot closer to someone who's got a really long thumb. Like for me, if I'm holding a bar, I can get away with it being like down there because I've got a really long thumb. So like this would benefit me loads, because like I can hang it pretty far down and still have my thumb touch my index finger. But if you have like a really short thumb, then you're gonna have to be like right up there. And it's just like, again, it's just one of those things that is too nitpicky of a rule in my opinion, and it makes things confusing. Like Evan got that lift. Like let's be real, he did. So that's my thoughts on the deadlift. Let's keep going with the squats. All right, so the next event was the overhead medley, the axle and log medley. This one was pretty brutal, wasn't it? Like, pretty brutal. Like 5 implements, switching between the two. Yeah, it's truly a test on who is the best overall presser. I think that this event is good. Perhaps argument of it being too heavy, but this is the strongest man on earth, the heaviest comp there is. So I think it wasn't too bad. Now the main talking point on this one is the axle being in the wrong place, the axles being the wrong way around. Now it's strongman. Accidents happen, and I think the important thing is how was that accident handled. So obviously, it goes without saying they should be the right way round. And even if they look identical, they should be labelled. It shouldn't have happened, but it did. And I think the way it was handled by Brian and the organisation is in the absolute most correct way possible. Like, obviously, it's not great, but it was caught early on enough in the event that it didn't have too much of a catastrophic event. The decision on what to do was taken to the athletes and voted on. So it was chosen by the athletes, which is the right thing as well. You should speak to the athletes, especially the ones who have already been, and see what is fair, because at the end of the day, it isn't fair, but crap happens. So yeah, I think it wasn't the end of the world. It's a bit unfortunate, but Brian took it on the chin. And I'm sure, knowing Brian, it won't happen again. So I think overall it was a good event, and yeah, the mistake was sorted out pretty nicely. I think maybe something just to make it possibly a bit better would maybe have 1 less implement, so an equal number of axles and logs, 2 each. Maybe we might see more guys finishing, but I know Brian likes it heavy, and I know that this medley is not something he wants everyone to finish. So I think in the respect of having 5 implements, a nice long time limit, it doesn't matter that not many people finish at all. I think overall it's fine. And I think I like the idea of having a mixed implement medley for overhead like that. We see logs a lot, and we're starting to see axles a lot as well, which is good. We should have the mix, but yeah, having them in a mixed medley is a good change in my opinion. I just wish we saw more things like, instead of 2 of each, maybe a similar medley of having like an axle, a log, a barbell, like, you know, something a bit different. But as events go, it was pretty good. I enjoyed it. As an overhead event goes, it looked pretty cool. I know the athletes probably hate having to switch between doing a log, doing an axle, doing a log, doing an axle, because the techniques are so wildly different. But yeah, it's a pretty entertaining event to watch. And yeah, I don't have too many quarrels with that. I think it was handled well with the mistakes. So let's keep squatting. Well, that felt like shit because I forgot to put my wrist wraps on. Oh, we can't be affording to make those mistakes. But no, in all honesty, it felt pretty good. Just hurt my wrists. So yeah, we won't forget that for the top set, that's for sure. But the next event on the Strongest Man on Earth, I'm going to do 2 events in one here, because the keg toss for max height was one of my favourite events in this whole competition. I think the apparatus looked absolutely incredible. Yeah, the setup was just awesome. There was no question about the heights. It wasn't like it could move or anything. The net to catch the kegs, fantastic idea. I know the gate broke, but who actually gives a shit about that? Like, it was a really big success of the new apparatus. And I honestly, I think the keg toss was a prime example of something Brian's trying to do to make things look big, impressive, done in the right way. I'll get onto my thoughts about the squat in a minute, but yeah, having a massive keg toss setup like this looks awesome, but it doesn't have an effect on the athlete's performance. You can't game the keg toss setup. You can't do any of that. You can just throw the keg. So having that done that way is, I think, the right thing, because I know there's been a lot of complaints about the machine type lifts like the chest press last year, the car leg press. Like, yes, they look super cool, but the fixed plane of motion, everything is a bit dubious. It can be gamed. As I said, we'll talk about the squat in a minute, so stay tuned for that. But I think the keg toss is a prime example of that done correctly, where the apparatus, the setup looks massive, looks really impressive, looks super cool, but it doesn't change anything about how the athlete performs the lift. So that's just a thing that I wanted to sprinkle in there. But overall, the keg toss, super awesome. I really enjoyed the not only split times, but also splitting it based on which keg you pass on. So you get 3 attempts at each throw, and getting it on the first attempt beats getting it on the second attempt, which has not been done in keg toss before, I don't think. And I think that's a really good way of scoring it and splits the athletes up way more. So keg toss was a big win in my books. It was one of my favorite events. So yeah, really good. And then the stones. Oh my goodness, the stones. Probably the most hyped event going into this competition, and probably one of the most disappointing for people watching. Stones are weird. Stones feel different, but depending on so many things. It's why they're not my favourite event, because you can fail them based on tacky, based on how new or how dusty the stone is. Every stone feels different. So that's why I don't like it being something that we go for records on. Like, it's cool to see who has the biggest stone, but it's difficult to be consistent with it. So yeah, I think as an event goes, I don't think there was anything wrong with the stones. I know a lot of people are calling out the fact that they are brand new, calling out the fact that they were slippy, but what do you expect? Like, they're huge stones. It's not exactly like millions of people are going to be lifting them beforehand, getting them all tacky like. And I think, honestly, it was all of the surprise results, namely Tom Stoltman zeroing, is just a product of poor execution on the athlete's part, to be completely honest. Like, yes, Tom should expect to go out and be able to lift the heaviest one, but by going straight to it, not the smartest move, in my opinion. You've got 4 stones to choose from, and Tom, with how good of a stone lifter he is, he can go out and put that 200 kilo stone over like it's a beach ball, like it's nothing. It won't take anything out of him. And then you can focus on going heavy. It's what both Mitch and Thor did after seeing so many athletes struggling. Go out, do a rep on the lightest stone to get some points on the board, and then go with the heavier ones. It's the same thing that happened to Tom on the log. He went out, tried the heaviest one first, and ended up gassing out and not having enough energy for the lighter one when he failed. It's just, yeah, it's a product of poor execution. Like, as a top level strongman, you should sort of expect that new stones are going to be slippy. Most people who went out did this mistake, so it's not a slight on Tom at all. It's things feel good in training, so good in fact that you expect more of yourself, but it's competition. Equipment's going to feel different, especially new stones. So in my opinion, nothing was wrong with the stones, nothing was wrong with any of the setup or anything like that. It was just poor execution and overestimation on a lot of the athletes, thinking they could do more than they could, and probably with good reason. Like, obviously we know Tom's probably the best stone lifter we've got, and a lot of the other guys who failed are very, very good stone lifters, but sometimes you do just need to go out, get points on the board, and then try and go for the big numbers. So that's just my opinion, but you're welcome to disagree with it. But that is the stones and the throw, rounding off day 1 of the strongest man on earth, leaving Mitch in a pretty nice position going into day 2, which had the squat. And speaking of the squat, I'm about to go and hit my top set. Let's see how many reps I can get on 195. Well, that was pretty damn good, actually. Geez, my squats come on so much, like a ridiculous amount in the last few months. 195 for 8 reps is pretty damn good, and it felt like genuinely felt good. Like it didn't feel hard. Like, obviously, it felt hard because it's heavy squats, but for heavy squats, it didn't feel too bad. Um, yeah, great. Depth was pretty good across the board as well. Obviously, strongman depth isn't as much of a factor, but yeah, really pleased with how those moved. Jesus Christ. But it is time to talk about the one and only machine squat at the strongest man on earth. Probably the most controversial event of the entire competition, with most of the field zeroing the squat, and then only a few people getting a few reps, and then Mitch coming out and dominating the event. But was his depth deep enough? Well, let's talk about it. So, first things first, I would just like to say that it was too heavy, and too heavy in that it was too heavy for a piece of apparatus the athletes hadn't used beyond its empty frame the evening before. And that is because it being on a fixed plane and being a machine, every machine feels different. So you can't go in and use your normal squat form and expect the same results as normal squats. Now, this is probably most notable on Hafthor, where he is a monster squatter, was touted to win, but his wide stance squat form, where he relies a lot on hip and lower back power, just doesn't work with this implement. It is pure quad strength, this implement, and someone who squats much narrower, such as Mitch and Lucas Hatton, were able to get a lot more power out. And I think if they had used this implement a bit heavier in athlete testing, they would have been able to figure that out and bring their stance in and use a lot more quad drive, because I think that's what happened to a lot of the athletes. I know Ivars was saying that in Loz and Liz's behind the scenes, where it just isn't the same as a normal squat, and the feet position being mandated by a grid, even though you're setting it the night before on the empty apparatus. I think you should be able to adjust and set your feet. It's like it's the yin and yang of a machine type event, because yes, machines can be gamed with leverage and everything because it's on a fixed plane, and I think either you have to expect that with a machine and just say anything goes as long as you hit depth and be able to set yourself in a much better position, or you do what you did at Shaw and mandate the foot position, but you have to allow the athletes to get a feel for the weight and feel for the position beforehand. Maybe you could do something like they're allowed one change of their feet or something after a first rep, because I think so many people are strong enough to lift that bit of kit, but they just didn't have the positioning, and as soon as your positioning goes on something like a squat, it is over. Yeah, I think calling it a squat, obviously it is, but it got a lot of people hyped for a barbell-like squat, and this was a Smith machine squat. It was a machine lift, more akin to a leg press or a hack squat. So the strongest legs would still win, but it's less about who's the best squatter and more about who has got the strongest legs. Now, let's talk about Mitch's depth and why people were up in arms about it. So I will start this off by saying you cannot blame Mitch. That is the end of it. That is the be-all and end-all of it. The machine bottoms out at a certain point, and Mitch couldn't have physically gone any deeper if he had tried. And that's all I have to say. It is on the organisers, the people who took the measurements, and the kit itself as to why Mitch wasn't hitting the required depth. But I also think if we hadn't have seen that side angle of Mitch, it wouldn't have been as big of an issue. From the front on views, it doesn't look as egregious. You could definitely tell it's slightly higher than some other people's, but so were a few of the other athletes. And I think it was only because we saw the side angle it was that bad. But if you look at the side angle of other athletes, I think there was one in Loz and Liz's behind the scenes. You can see that it is very similar, where with this machine, with a squat, if you lean forwards on a normal squat, like hinge forwards, your hips rise, you can't hit the same depth, but you can't take the piss with it because the bar will roll off your back and push you forward. Whereas on a machine, the bar's not going to go anywhere, so you can really take advantage of that leaning forward back strength and just drive with your quads and do it almost more similarly to a back lift, and you don't get the same depth. And that is just part of it. Like, it's going to favour someone like myself who does squat a little bit similarly, where once it gets heavy, I tend to fold forward and my hips rise. And if you're on a fixed play machine, there's not a lot you could do about that. You can usually correct it on a free bar because the bar, once again, moves and will knock you over if you overcorrect too much. But on a machine, you can't. And if you watch Mitch's free bar squats, he does this exact motion where he hits the hole and then his hips rise first and then his back. And I think that's just what was happening on this machine. And again, you can't blame Mitch, but I do agree that if you're wanting a squat event, you have to be consistent with the depth. And I think that's much easier to mandate on a normal free moving squat apparatus. I think on a machine squat like this, you see it everywhere. Any machine squat that's been done, any car squat, anything like that, depth is going to vary. And I think with Strongman, it's silly to get super emotional and angry about it, because at the end of the day, I think we can all agree Mitch was likely to win that event even if he was going slightly deeper. Like, he was so dominant. It's just a machine that suited his proportions and suited his strength well. He is a very quad dominant squatter, and you can see that in his quads. They are massive. And I think the others are more like hamstring and glute dominant squatters, and that's where it threw them out a bit more. So I think it's a difficult one for sure. And I think this is where the machine type lifts that Brian has been doing have their drawbacks. Like, yes, they look massive and impressive, but it is hard to mandate the same standards when everyone's body is different and everyone's going to move slightly differently. And like, that's just how Mitch squats. Like, if he had to go deeper, I'm sure he would have, but it's not on him. He will, as he said in Liz and Loz's behind the scenes, it wasn't like an intentional, he was like measuring in super weird position and then his actual squats were much higher. It was nothing like that. It was just the fact that once it gets heavy, your body might move slightly differently, which is what happens to me. It's what happens to a lot of people. I'm sure you can relate to that, where your warm-ups look absolutely perfect squats, and then you start getting to maximal loads and you lose that and start hinging backwards and forwards. Like, this isn't powerlifting. This is strongman. The strongest man is going to win. And I understand that it's frustrating, but it's like, it's the toss-up. You either get super good, impressive, big looking bits of kit like this squat, but you have to take that with a pinch of salt in that someone is going to have an advantage of a machine like this because of how they're built. And it just so happened to be Mitch this time round. Other athletes have advantages on different events. Like Tom has that enormous wingspan for carries and stones and all of that. It's just the way it is. So that's my thoughts on it. I think it was a cool event in spectacle, and I think it was a cool event in practice. I just think the athletes should have had a better feel of how it was going to be, and be able to get into a better position. And if you do machine lifts, you're just going to have to either be like ridiculously strict or take it with a grain of salt, which I know Strongman fans aren't great at doing, especially when it results in Mitch winning, because everyone seems to have a vendetta out on Mitch. But I don't think he did anything wrong. I don't think it's that egregious. It's not that deep. It's not that deep to worry about. So I am now going to drop the weight down on my squats, down to 140 kilo, and do a few sets of 8 box squat back offs just to build that driving power. And in between those, of course, we're going to talk about the other events. So yeah, not too heavy the weight on those, but we're making sure they're nice and controlled, paused on the box and then exploded back up, and they feel pretty brutal after that top set. So yeah, even though the weight's light, you can still do a lot with it. So yeah, and it's worth noting as well that yes, I'm wearing knee wraps on these back off sets. I'm just doing a very light wrap, so mainly providing my a bit of support to the patellas, and then not cutting off the circulation from the quads, so that I am able to keep going through these long and controlled sets. So yeah, it's a nice light wrap, and I like knee wraps for being able to control that rather than knee sleeves, because my knee sleeves are great for stuff like push press and overhead, where it provides a really nice amount of support for that explosive movement, but you can't control how much support you're getting from them. So with stuff like a squat, when I want maybe like loads of support and then not very much support, it saves me having like 4 or 5 different pairs of sleeves. I can just have the one pair of sleeves for overhead and moving and stuff like that, and then use wraps on squats, because the wraps are pretty much always allowed in Strongman. So they are just a great tool to have in your arsenal and be able to control what sort of support you're giving your knees. So that is right, the next event of SMOE then. Now this event was my favourite event of the entire competition. The one without controversy, the absolutely awesome power medley. Now, I don't know if you know much about me, but I live in the countryside, in the middle of nowhere, from a lineage of farmers on my dad's side. So seeing these strongmen pick up a baler and use it as a wheelbarrow and then arm over arm pull a tractor is just flipping awesome. This is the sort of stuff strongman needs. Really big, really impressive. Don't care that much about the weight, just know it's damn heavy. Yeah, I think it was awesome. The pull probably could have been done with being a little bit shorter, just so that we had a couple of guys who did finish both implements. But I think that the medley was fine as it was. No real controversy with it. As I said, really fun and entertaining to watch. Yeah, big fan, massive fan of that one. And then we had the dumbbell after that, which dumbbell medley I think is great. I really love a dumbbell medley. Now, controversy on this one again is with the judging, with specifically Terry giving stricter down calls than JF in the other lane, which, you know, is part of Strongman. If you have a head-to-head with 2 refs, they're not going to be identical, are they? But I do agree that on a dumbbell, you don't have to hold it for 4 to 5 seconds. It's a split-second hold. But again, the controversy about Thor not getting the down signal and putting it down, that's on Thor, I'm afraid. I know Thor fanboys are going to hate that, but if you've locked out a dumbbell, you can stand there with it. Lucas Hatton proved that on the heaviest one. And if you're an athlete and you're not getting the down signal and you're putting it down, you can't be shocked that you didn't get the rep. Like, I'm sure he isn't. I'm sure he's absolutely aware of the fact, but his fans don't seem to be. Yeah, if you don't get the down signal and you put it down, you're not getting the rep. And if it's locked out, then you should be able to stand there and hold it locked out. Preempting the down signal is never a good idea, even if you think you know what a good rep is. So where I agree that the reffing was pretty strict, it again is on the athlete to listen to that refereeing. Like that is it at the end of the day. I will say that, yeah, if you're being strict, then both refs need to be as strict. But yeah, it's what it is. I don't think it changed the result too much, to be honest. But yeah, it is unfortunate. I hate it when there is controversy in events, because it divides the fan base and gets people arguing, and that's not what we want in Strongman. But it does show people who are invested, which I guess is a good thing. But the positive is there were no dubious down calls really at all. It was a very well-reffed dumbbell event overall, apart from the strictness. All of Mitch's reps were as locked out as you can get a dumbbell most of the time. He wasn't way off out to the side like this, like we've seen in previous competitions. So I don't think you can be mad at that. Lucas Hatton, what a man. He is what Tom is to stones, to dumbbells. Honestly, like, really good. I know Alexei is an absolute madman on dumbbells, and until that elbow's back to full health, we're not seeing that. But I would love to see him versus Hatton on a good set of dumbbells. So yeah, that was really good fun. So yeah, those were the middle two events of day 2. And by this point, going into the medley at the end, the Fingals into power stairs, I think we knew that Mitch was going to win. Like, it was barring absolute disaster. And we don't want an athlete like getting injured and losing in that way. Mitch, his last few comps have just been absolutely unstoppable. So it's great to see. But him and Thor are really the top 2 at the minute. Obviously, Tom at Worlds was phenomenal, but it just wasn't his comp this time round. But yeah, I think, yeah, it's been a really interesting comp. So I'll get my last set of these box squats in. We'll talk about the last event and then summarise the comp as a whole. And then we'll start smashing some leg accessories as if I need to hammer my legs anymore. Well, there we have it. Box squats out of the way, and my legs are feeling pretty knackered. They are feeling good. The drive from a dead stop at the bottom of the hole is a really good way to build up squat power, that's for sure. And deadlift power from the floor. So, yeah, really pleased with how squats are feeling. We're feeling pretty strong today. So, the final event of the strongest man on earth. Fingals finger into power stairs. I love this medley. I think it's awesome. Again, I think this event was spot on. I really love how the Fingals fingers finish vertically in that little locking mechanism. It is a shame that it doesn't work every single time, but as long as the athletes aren't penalised for it falling backwards due to a mechanism failure, that is all that matters. But I think it looks awesome. And then the power stairs are just an awesome finisher. Having athletes finish at the top of a big set of stairs on a podium just gives that scale and that grandeur to this event, and I think it is awesome. I think it looks really cool to have athletes finish up there and be able to celebrate knowing they've done a good job. So overall, this competition was really good, I think. Obviously, it wasn't without its mistakes and its controversies, but that is going to happen at every single competition. There is always an athlete that has a soft lockout. There is always an athlete that gets gifted a rep. There's always an athlete that figures out a way to bend the rules, usually Mitch. But that is part of the sport. That is part of Strongman. Let's just be thankful that we got to see the top 16 athletes in the world at the minute. Like, I can't think of anyone that was missing from that roster apart from Mateusz and Martins, who are both injured and below that top 16 level at the minute, in my opinion, because of their injuries. Obviously, they're still mentally strong in a lot of things, and hopefully we see them back soon. But as for the top 16 current guys, we're seeing that in this lineup, and we got to see people have their standout performance. Lucas Hatton was incredible on the dumbbell. Thor's deadlift is a thing of beauty. It is just a shame that we got to miss out on a really dominant stone performance from Tom. And I'm trying to think anywhere else where we've missed a performance. I guess the squat would have been nice to see a few more people showcase their leg power, but it's the way it is with the machine type lifts. But I think my points of improvement for this competition, from someone who really loves the sport and really thinks this competition is awesome, is if you're going to do a machine type lift, and I know it's controversial whether people like them or not, it just needs to be given to the athlete to have a go on at a decent weight. You know, like, I know not every athlete will want to, and that's totally up to them. And I'm sure maybe if they had asked, there would have been that option, but I think they need to feel some weight on it just to see how it's going to move and see what's going to be beneficial. Otherwise, we don't get to showcase the true strength of these guys. I think it's a safer bet just to go for a free weight type implement. As cool as these machines look, you could have quite easily done the squat with one of those barrels on either end of a barbell and it look awesome still. And then we get to see a much better representation of who's the best squatter. So I think in general, that is my main criticism. I think do away with the fingertip rule with straps. Either allow straps or don't allow straps. Don't try and limit what can be allowed within straps. It just becomes too complicated and too confusing for the fans to keep up with. And the main thing is give us kilos as well as pounds and show us results on the live stream as they're coming in. We don't... I see a lot of people on the Reddit saying that like, all this forced production graphs and AI and all of that is cool as a metric, but it's not cool when we're getting that instead of distances, weights, times, how people are doing. Rogue do it really well where they have the results in a sidebar and you can see how the athletes are getting on at all times pretty much. And I think that's what this needed. We just need to see the scores throughout the event more often instead of waiting for the commentators to give us them. It's just a few like little bits like that to improve that I think will be improved by next year. I think Brian takes the feedback very, very seriously. So hopefully we get some of those things. But overall, it was a very good comp, a very entertaining comp. And most of the events were awesome and without controversy. There was only just a few off calls and then the whole squat debacle, but I think that even that's not that deep. So I think overall it's a fantastic comp. It gets better every single year. Very much looking forward to it till next year. So now that my thoughts of the strongest man on earth are out of the way, let's get these legs pumped up and finish off. So we have got the Ukrainian deadlift, as I mentioned, and then the lying leg curls and Nordic drops. So I am going to record a couple sets of my Ukrainian deadlifts, and then we're going to talk through my setup, why I think it's beneficial on a leg day, why I think it's an underrated movement that's not done too much, and yeah, it's just cool. So let's get it done. So they are one of those exercises, as I say quite often, that feels way worse than it looks. Now, watching that back, you would have thought that I'm moving that super easy, far too light of a weight. But in my head and how I feel, it is lighting up all of those stability muscles in the legs and hips. So those adductors, those abductors, and really making them feel good. So it's a fantastic setup. It's really good to train that explosive push out of the hole on a squat. It is less back than it looks. Again, I'm quite hunched over in it, but it was all leg drive, all glutes, all of that stuff. It's a great accessory, it really is. Especially now where I am using leg press as an accessory to build strength from that deep position. So in the public gym, I'm going bare knees on leg press, not super heavy, really getting it as deep as I can, and then exploding out at the bottom. It's exactly the same principle with this. It feels very, very similar. Bare knees, getting as deep as I can, and then exploding from the bottom, making sure I touch the floor every single rep. And yeah, it feels awesome. Like, genuinely, if you have the means to set it up, absolutely give it a go. It is a really, really good exercise. But as you could probably imagine, my legs are pretty fried. I've just got a few hamstring accessories to get done, and then that is the end of the session. So it has been a brutal one. So I am going to get those hamstring accessories done, and then I'm going to chat to you after and leave this video there. They are two of the most grim finishers for your hamstrings after squatting that much, like actually real bad. So not to mention that hamstring curl is the worst feeling hamstring curl machine that has ever existed. Like, I challenge you to find a worse feeling one. It is more like a medieval weapon of torture, that thing. It is horrific, but we got it done. I mean, no excuse there. And on the Nordics, I know they don't look like the most impressive thing, but don't knock it till you try it. Like, I'm a very, very heavy guy. I'm 124, 125 kilo. And trying to lower yourself down using your hamstrings is a very difficult thing. So the whole point of Nordic drops is you control it until you can't. Then you go down, push yourself back up, and do it all over again. And that tension you feel as you're lowering yourself down is mega, and it really helps to build strong hamstrings on that controlled eccentric. So don't knock it till you try it. It feels a lot harder than it might look, but yeah, 3 sets of each of those properly killed me off. One day I will do a full unassisted Nordic hamstring curl, but it is not this day, and it's not going to be any day soon until I lose a bit of this weight. So that is that. But today has been an absolutely awesome session. I'm full of life now, even though I didn't sleep too much the last couple of nights watching The Strongest Man on Earth. And I hope you appreciate me giving my thoughts on that. I thought I'd do a bit of a 2-in-1. I didn't think there'd be enough interest to do just a straight my thoughts video. So I sprinkled it in with this training because it's been a while since I've filmed a full leg day session for you guys. So I thought it was important to get one out. And yeah, it was an awesome one. 195 for 8 reps is a big weight for me. I'm really pleased with that. So it's been overall a fantastic session, and I hope you did enjoy it. So 2 things I'm going to ask you to comment down below. One is your thoughts on The Strongest Man on Earth. Let's have a bit of a discussion down below. And the second is, what is your favourite unorthodox leg accessory? So for me, example, it is the Ukrainian deadlift. What sort of weird, funky leg things do you do on leg day that other people might not? Share them down below and maybe I'll give them a try. But that is that. I hope you did enjoy. If you did make it this far and haven't liked the video, please be sure to go ahead and leave a like down below. It helps me out massively. And if you made it this far and you're new to the channel because maybe you wanted to see what I thought about The Strongest Man on Earth and share your opinions, and you don't watch all of my videos, then please be sure to go ahead and subscribe and keep up to date with all of my strongman training. I do it, it's more relatable coming from someone like me who is just, you know, going through the motions, not one of these absolute monsters you see in competition. But we are currently gunning for a 300 kilo deadlift. So if you want to see that, and that is something you might be interested in, stay tuned because I film a lot of my deadlift sessions and they're good fun. But yes, that is that. I've been Toby. I hope you did enjoy, and I'll see you in the next video.